Hi, Colts. It's Mrs. Hladun. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, and I hope you're having a great day. Today, we're going to read a little bit more from The One and Only Ivan, which is written by Catherine Applegate. And the last place we left off was Ivan had made some posters that show that spelled something out, but we don't know exactly what they spelled out yet. And then he was shoving them through the glass to have Julia look at them. But then when he did that, she didn't get it at first. But right when we left off in the story, Julia was trying to realize what the posters said. She realized there was something he was trying to say. She just wasn't quite sure what. So let's figure out where we go from here. This section is called Finally. Julia and George take all the pictures to the ring where there's room to see them all. An hour passes as they try to assemble my puzzle. Ruby's awake now, and she and Bob and I watch. Ivan, Ruby says, "Is that a picture of me?" "Yes," I say proudly. "Where am I supposed to be?" "That's a zoo, Ruby. See the walls and the grass and the people looking at you?" Ruby squints. "Who are all the other elephants?" "You haven't met them," I say. "Yet." "It's a very nice zoo," Ruby says with an approving nod. Bob nudges me with his cold nose. It is indeed. In the ring, Julia pumps her fist in the air. "Yes," she cries. "I told you, Dad. There it is. Home. Home. Home." George gazes at the letters. He spins around to look at me. "Maybe it's just a coincidence, Jules. You know, a once-in-a-trillion kind of thing, like that old saying about the chimp and the typewriter. Give him long enough and he'll write a novel." I make a grumbling noise, as if a chimp could write a letter, let alone a book. "Then how do you explain the rest of it?" Julia demands. "The picture of Ruby in the zoo." "How do you know it's a zoo?" George asks. "See the circle on the gate? There's a red giraffe in it." George squints and tilts his head. "Are you sure that's a giraffe? I was thinking more along the lines of a deformed cat." "It's the logo for the zoo, Dad. It's on all their signs. Explain that." George gives her a helpless smile. I can't begin to. I'm just saying there has to be a logical explanation." "Look at how big this is." Julia puts the last piece of Ruby's right ear into place. "It's huge." "It's definitely large," George agrees. Julia watches me. She chews on her thumbnail. I see the questions in her eyes. She turns back to the paintings and stares at them, looking, truly looking. A slow smile dawns on Julia's face. "Dad," she says, "I have an idea, a big idea." Julia races around the edge of my painting, her arms spread wide. "Billboard big." "I'm not following you." "I think this was meant to be on a billboard. That's what Ivan wants." George crosses his arms over his chest. "What Ivan wants," he repeats slowly. "And you know this because you two have been chatting?" "Because I'm an artist, and he's an artist." "Uh-huh," says George. Julia clasps her hands together. "Come on, Dad, I'm begging you." George shakes his head. "No, I'm not doing that. No billboard. No way." "I'll get the ladder," Julia says. "You get the glue. I know it's dark out, but the billboard's lit." "Mac'll fire me, Jules." Julia considers. "But think of the publicity, Dad. Everyone would want to know about Ruby." "You want me to put up a sign that shows Ruby in a zoo with the word home on it in giant letters?" George gestures towards my pictures. "A sign, incidentally, that just happens to have been made by a gorilla?" "Exactly." "And you want me to do it without Mac's permission?" George asks. "Exactly." "No," George says. "No way." Julia goes to the edge of the ring, careful not to step on any of my paintings. She picks up Mac's claw stick. She walks back and hands it to her father. George runs a finger along the blade. "She's just a baby, Dad. Don't you want to help her?" "But how would it help, Jules? Even if lots of people see Ivan's sign, it doesn't mean anything's going to change." "I'm not exactly sure yet," Julia shakes her head, "but maybe people will see the sign and they'll know this isn't where Ruby belongs. Maybe they'll want to help too." George sighs. He looks at Ruby. She waves her trunk. "It's a matter of principle, Dad. Principal. Corrects George. "Dad," Julia says softly, "what if Ruby ends up like Stella?" George looks at me, at Ruby, at Julia. He drops the claw stick. "The ladder," he says quietly, "is in the storage locker." The next morning. What do you think? What do you think Mac's going to say? Let's find out. I watch Mac's car slam to a halt in the parking lot. He leaps out. He stares at the billboard. His jaw is open. He doesn't move for a long time. Okay, what's your prediction about Mac's reaction? Do you think he's going to be happy? Is he going to be sad? Is he going to want to help Ruby? Is he going to think that Julia and George did a wonderful thing or a terrible thing? What's your prediction? I think that the next chapter title gives it all away. Are you ready? The next section is called Mad Human. A mad gorilla is loud, but a mad human can be loud too, especially when he's throwing chairs and turning over tables and breaking the cotton candy machine. Phone call. Mac is kicking a trash can across the food court when the phone rings. He answers it, red-faced and sweating. "What the?" he demands. He glares at me. "I don't know what you're," he starts to say, but then he stops to listen. "Who? Julia who?" he asks. "Oh, sure, George's kid. Is she the one who called you?" More talking. With the phone on his ear, Mac comes closer to my cage, eyeing me suspiciously. Yeah, he says. "He paints, sure. We've been selling his art for quite a while now." There's another long pause. "Yeah, absolutely, it was my idea." Mac nods. A smile starts at the corner of his mouth. "Photos? No problem. You want to see him in action? Come on down, have a look. We're open 365 days a year. Can't miss us. We're right off of I-95. Mac picks up the overturned trash can. "Yeah, I think he'll be adding more pictures. It's a, what do you call it, a work in progress?" When the call is done, Mac shakes his head. "Possible," he says. An hour later, a man with a camera comes to take my picture. He's from the local paper, the one Julia called. "How about you take one of me with the elephant?" Mac suggests. He drapes his arm around Ruby's back, grinning as the camera clicks. "Perfect," the man says. "Perfect," Mac agrees. And this is a picture of Mac with Ruby, the picture the guy took. How do you think Ruby looks? What do you think her emotions are? And how do you think Mac looks? Do you think that they feel the same way? A star again. A photo of my billboard is in the newspaper. Mac tapes the story onto my window. Each day, more curious people arrive. They park in front of the billboard. They point and shake their heads. They take photos. They come into the mall and they buy my paintings. While visitors watch, I dip my hands in fresh buckets of paint. I make pictures for the gift shop and pictures to add to the billboard. Trees with birds, a newborn elephant with glittering black eyes, a squirrel, a bluebird, a worm. I even paint Bob so he can be on the billboard too. I can tell he likes the picture, although he says I didn't quite capture his distinguished nose. Every afternoon, Mac and George add my new pictures to the billboard. People slow their cars while they work. Drivers honk and wave. My gift shop pictures now cost $65 with frame. The Ape Artist. I have new names. People call me the Ape Artist, the Primate Picasso. I have visitors from morning till night, and so does Ruby. But nothing's changed for her. Every day at 2, 4, and 7, Ruby plods through the sawdust with Snickers on her back. Every night she has bad dreams. "Bob," I say after I've soothed Ruby to sleep with a story, "my idea is not working." Bob opens one eye. "Be patient." "I'm tired of being patient," I say. Interview. This evening, a man and woman come to interview Mac and also George and Julia. The man has a heavy camera perched on his shoulder. He films me as I make my pictures. He films Ruby in her cage with her foot roped to the bolt on the floor. "Mind if I take a look around?" he asks. Mac waves a hand. "Be my guest." While Mac and the woman talk, the cameraman walks through the mall. He pans his camera right and left, up and down. When his eyes fall on the claw stick, he stops. He trains his camera on the gleaming blade, and then he moves on. The early news. Mac turns on the TV. We are on the early news at 5 o'clock. Bob says, "Don't let it get to my head." There we all are. Mac, Ruby, me, George and Julia, the billboard, the mall, the ring, and the claw stick. Signs on a stick. In the morning, several people gather in the parking lot. They're carrying signs on sticks. The signs have words and pictures on them. One has a drawing of a gorilla cradling a baby elephant. I wish I could read. Protesters. More people came with signs today. They want Ruby to be free. Some of them even want Mac to shut down the mall. In the evening, George and Mac talk about them. Mac says they're protesting the wrong guy. He says they're going to ruin everything. He says, thanks for nothing, George. Mac stomps off. George, holding his mop, watches him leave. He rubs his eyes. He looks worried. Dad, Julia said, looking up from her homework, you know what my favorite sign was? George asks. Which one? The one that says elephants are people too. George gives her a tired smile. He goes back to work. His mop moves across the empty food court like a giant brush, painting a picture no one will ever see. Here's some of the pictures of the posters, the signs, the protest posters. This is the one down here that Julia liked. All right, and that's where we're going to stop. So when we pick up tomorrow, we're going to continue to read, and we're going to see what happens to Ruby and Ivan. I'm very interested to see if Ruby's able to get out of there, and maybe Ivan too. We'll find out. All right, Colts, I'll see you later. Take care, all right? Bye.